Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. Here we talk about Africa's geopolitical engagement with its strategic partners around the world. In this episode, I really want to look at the United States of America's relationship with the country of Eritrea. These relations goes back to history. It's important to note that the United States of America supported Eritreans' independence. But recently, in the past couple of decades, it's been clear that each time there is an American administration from the Republican side, they will engage Eritrea to an extent, diplomatically or from a strategic point of view. But each time there is a democratic government in place in the United States, the Eritrea's relationship has been pushed back or put at the back burner. This has caused a lot of challenges with regards to the United States' relationship with the country of Eritrea. That's why Eritrea continued to go closer to the countries of Russia and China and other strategic partners, because Eritrea is redefining its foreign policy. There are challenges that are in place, no doubt. However, the United States of America's African policy has been designed around combating China or Russia. This has gone a long way to alienate a number of very strategic partners in the region, like South Africa and other very important countries across the continent of Africa. African nations have said we are free to make our own decision. The recent travel to the country of China by the Eritrean president, he clearly indicated where Eritrea stands with regards to global conflict and global hegemony approach with regards to their perspective, looking at the US approach with regards to Eritrea. It should be noted, however, that the United States of America's approach in the continent has been shadowed by China's presence and the engagement of Russia in the region, and more importantly, in a passive way with regards to the European Union. The United States has three very important principles to tackling things that happen in global communities, and this hasn't sit well with regards to US strategic partner in the global south. First, the US most at times will tackle problems by throwing money at it, which has no solution so far. Another way the United States approach certain global conflict will be they throw weapons at it, or at some time they go ahead and sanction the problem. This has caused a lot of strategic problems for the United States of America. By the US approaching Africa's foreign policy, looking at the Joe Biden administration, Joe Biden visited the continent of Africa a couple of months before the end of his presidency. That has been questioned a lot by several African leaders, which they perceived that the United States never took Africa as a priority. But the question here is, if you look at Eritrea's relation with the United States of America, when the president of Eritrea visited China, he clearly lashed out to the United States approach with regards to Eritrea's relationship. Don't forget, Eritrea is an important strategic nation with regards to US foreign policy. But first, let's roll the clip on how the Eritrean president perceived the United States approach with regards to their global strategic engagement with the country of Eritrea.
The imbalances globally, conflicts here and there, world wars, and continuous confrontations have been the philosophies of many minorities who have tried to dominate. It's hegemonistic, it's dominating as an attitude to suppress peoples and nations and finally control or dominate global economy. It's been a misguided policy. It's a misconception of realities. It's misunderstanding of history. Now we see the future is very bright. The future is very bright because of Chinese achievement. China has proven to everybody in the world, the marginalized and those who entertain the ideas of domination, this is no more the rule of the game. People of the world will have to cooperate. The new world order is an order of cooperation, complementarity, and working together. It's not a world order for domination or hegemony. In spite of all the achievements, in spite of so many things happening globally, Africa remains to be a marginalized continent. Marginalized continent because of its economies. It's a subsistence economy. It's a very backward economy. You hear about famine here, famine there, conflict there, All sorts of bad things are there. Now, Africa needs to be extricated from this state of affairs. How can Africa do it? It's the responsibility of the people in Africa. But definitely, Chinese contributions are very significant. For Africa to extricate itself, what China has done the last few decades in transforming the reality of Africa is only a beginning. And hopefully, the solidarity between China and Africa will create a synergy that will accelerate the process of extricating Africa from marginalization.
Eritrea is a very important country if you consider the United States of America's relation looking at the Horn of Africa. The United States supported Eritrea's independence, but ongoing government detention of political dissidents based on the United States perspective and others, including closure of the independent press, limits and so liberties, allegation of human rights abuse, and also the expulsion of some United States of America government officials, and contributed to the strained relationship between these two countries. However, if you look at the position of Eritrea, Eritrea is an important country. Eritrea is one of those nations that if you look at the strategic importance of this country, let's look at the strategic importance and the reason why Eritrea also have some cards to put on the table that the United States of America cannot ignore. Eritrea is only about the size of Virginia, with a population of around 6 million people. But Asmara punches above its weight in geopolitical significance is because of where it sits. Eritrea has nearly 1,400 miles of Red Sea coastline and shares a maritime border with Yemen and also Saudi Arabia. It holds a commanding position on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a global shipping checkpoint, and its islands pepper the Red Sea. Most of Eritrea, experts will argue, is mineral rich. Assab is closer than any other port to the heart of the Bab. And if you look at this particular importance of this nation, you cannot ignore it. There's back and forth with regards to Eritrea and the United States of America. It's not going anywhere soon. This cat and mouse between these two countries is being observed by other geopolitical partners. Let me also say this. Eritrea is one of the only countries in the continent of Africa that voted against the UN-sponsored resolution to condemn Russia. Why is it that? The country of Eritrea has seen its relationship with the United States of America's geopolitical foes. So it began to align itself with regards to how he perceived Russia's global perspective and the Chinese perspective. The United States approach has been a huge challenge with regards to how he perceived the country of Eritrea. When the US African Summit took place, the United States of America refused to invite Somaliland and the country of Eritrea. It is important, a statement read from the United States government that clearly indicated that invitations were sent out to countries who are in good standing with the African Union. The statement said, currently, there is 4 countries that have been supported by the AU, and so they were not extended invitation in addition to 2 countries, one which we do not recognize and one with whom we do not share full diplomatic relations. That's a statement that came from banks. This particular relationship has caused a lot of geopolitical tension with regards to Eritrea's presence in the region. As the US President Joe Biden leaves office, his legacy will be reviewed from a different geopolitical lens. It's important to note that. Let me look at this on how some analysts looked at Joe Biden's term in office from a different way. The US President recently made a strategic speech regarding his presence when he came to office and what he's leaving behind.
We begin the day in the final week of the Biden presidency. Joe Biden is preparing to leave the White House. His exit may also lower the curtain on an American foreign policy no longer fit for purpose, made for a world order increasingly out of order. Even before Joe Biden became U.S. president, he spoke of this time being an inflection point in history, a fork in the road. One direction, democracy; the other direction, autocracy. Biden has repeatedly pointed to China as America's 21st century rival, Beijing offering an alternative to the post-war rules-based international order led by the U.S. Well, Biden may have wanted to walk us into the next great American century, but the problems of the past kept holding him back. Echoes of the Cold War with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the malaise of the Middle East that broke out anew with the war between Israel and Hamas. Today at the U.S. State Department, Biden thanked America's diplomats and he offered his take on the world that he is leaving behind.
Right now, in my view, thanks to our administration, the United States is winning the worldwide competition. Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. We've increased our military power, making the most significant investments in the defense industrial base in decades. We've increased the technology power, taking the lead in artificial intelligence and other technologies of the future. And we've increased the economic power, building the most dynamic economy in the world from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down.
Several African countries have come under enormous pressure as a result of their approach or conversation or supporting Russia or China in a number of areas. The country of South Africa is one of those nations that came under enormous pressure as a result of their engagement. So this is important. If the US continue with such a policy and looking, I'm not saying that what's happening in Eritrea, it's okay, but again, the US is losing out in a very important strategic region in the continent of Africa. The Eritreans are pushing back with regards to US engagement. The two countries are in loggerheads in a number of areas. But again, Eritrea is using its small size and engaging with United States of America's antagonist, so to put it that way. So this has gone a long way not to sit well with what Washington is anticipating. I think when Donald Trump was in power, the relationship between the country of Eritrea and the United States was not that frosty to an extent. We all will see what happens if Donald Trump comes back in power, as he is going to be inaugurated soon on January 20th, and we will know what happens with regards to this particular relationship. But from the past term when Donald Trump was in power, there was some coziness with regards to Eritrea and the United States of America. Again, Eritrea has decided that it will select its own partners, and the sanctions that the United States have on this particular country, they will continue to evade it in several ways and moving closer to other countries like China and Russia, like I pointed out, because these countries also have their own strategic interests to protect. And the location of where Eritrea is very, very important. And the United States cannot ignore that particular area where China, if China actually sets a military base there, it will complicate the United States of America's presence in the region. Absolutely. But listen, this is where the United States of America should be concerned. Because if China, I say this again, if China happen to build a base, if China, for example, develops a base or possibly even dual-use infrastructure in Assab or Massawa to complement its base in neighboring Djibouti, it will be able to blockade the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. If a confrontation with China were to occur, such a closure will force American Sixth Fleet to waste precious days streaming from Mediterranean Sea around southern tips of Africa to get to the Indian or Pacific Ocean. Beijing could also cut off access to the port of Djibouti, which is critical for operations of nearby US military base, and also which uses by the 5th of Department Defense 11 Command in that particular area. So the notion that Eritrea is not relevant with regards to the US foreign policy in Africa, and that you think the US is comfortable that Eritrea is going a lot closer to China and Russia, then you are mistaken. The United States of America's foreign policy should be focused on rapprochement and engaging and looking those countries as equal. This same problem happened in the country of Niger when the United States of America's delegation talk down on the Nigerian government, the current military government in the country, and wanted to impose their will on the Nigerian government. And they received the pushback. I think that the United States failures to figure out its presence in Somaliland and also what's happening in Eritrea is causing a lot of difficulties regards to US engagement in that particular region. That's the reason why Eritrea is going closer to the country of Russia and China to figure out a strategic relationship in the region. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards to US foreign policy in the continent of Africa and why the country of Eritrea has decided that it will scale its operations to directions that fit its own geopolitical benefits. Thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.